Every year we come to Nocterra Brewing and make a collaborative beer. All the sales go to the kids. It's called Take a Hike. This is Bruce, and unbeknownst to me behind the camera, he's doing the most dangerous part of the entire process of beer making, and I have no idea that I'm in danger. But fortunately, Bruce is a pro, and I was never really in any danger at all.
The biggest risk, I guess, in the brewing industry is boilovers for the brewer side. It doesn't happen very often, but it always could. It's just one of those things you gotta think about all the time. So, I'm Bruce Vivian. I'm the head brewer here at Nocterra Brewing Company, and today we're brewing Take a Hike 13, which is a spiced cookie ale. Our Take a Hike program is our donation series beer. Today's charity is CD 92.9, the children a-thon, however it's pronounced.
Close enough. It's 9 a.m. and we're getting started in the milling room.
We get barley in whole seed form, and it has to be kind of opened up like you would grind coffee to make coffee. This recipe is like 1,200 pounds.
So you're back here lifting 1,200 pounds before we even start.
Right. This is some Ohio-grown stuff. This is their Munich malt. We'll also be using their Pilsner malt in this recipe, so kind of a mix. So should be pretty good.
You can eat these, right? Can I have a ceremonial bite? It's gonna be good. Scrumptious. With all the barley in the mix, well, most of the barley in the mix, and some on the floor.
I only spilled like a lot. Is that all right?
It's time to mix in some hot Columbus City water.
So then that gets mashed in the mash tun, mixed with certain temperature warm water. Those enzymes wake up, and those enzymes convert starch to sugar, and that sugar is eventually what we're gonna turn to alcohol.
Quick disclaimer here, I am really oversimplifying the process. We're like 1 hour in, and Bruce has already explained so much science, ingredients, temperatures, chemical enzymes that I am simply too dumb to understand. At its most basic concept so far, it's been grain and hot water, and a little manual labor also in the mix. So this is our malt from the other room, and it came in here and combined with the Columbus City water, filtered.
That's right.
So what is it that I'm doing here?
Inherently, there's some dry grain that doesn't get hydrated in the grist hydrator, so you want to make sure that that all gets mixed in, because any grain that's dry won't convert, you won't get any sugar, you won't get any flavor. It's just kind of a waste, so you got to make sure it's all included.
When you're drinking a flavorful beer, there's some elbow grease.
There's some elbow grease
involved in the process.
Right, at least at our level.
When you drink this beer, and it's got a good consistency, you can feel free to thank me. If I soak the microphone in the beer, it'll taste more like the radio. So inside of this vat is a spinning...
So it's a rake.
If I leave this in here, the rake would just take it and yank this ore away from me. You've never dropped it.
Not yet.
I'm terrified that I'm going to drop it because Bruce says he's never dropped it once before.
There's a big red emergency stop button over there if you do.
Perfect. It kind of hangs out here for a little bit, is
yeah,
that right?
So we're going to do about an hour rest and allow that enzyme reaction to occur.
When can I start that hour rest?
Right now.
Sweet. I'm sweating.
All right.
While we had some downtime, I wandered around the brewery, took in the sights. Fast-moving technology, some slow-moving technology, some gurgling, and whatever this guy does. But most of all, I was taken by how much science was going on nonstop all day. Like the brewery was a sci-fi movie right in front of us.
I am Emma, and I'm an assistant brewer here.
What are we testing today?
So these are samples of all the beers that we currently have in the fermenters over there in the cellar. And I'm just taking gravity and pH samples to like track how well they're fermenting, just to basically figure out sugar you started with and the sugar you end with, calculate like alcohol. But you can also see if the beer is on track. Because sometimes you'll have a beer that will stall out and stop fermenting before it's supposed to, and then we have to like troubleshoot and figure out why. And I just take samples with these, and it'll hopefully give me a number.
1.7, is that what you were expecting?
Yeah, exactly what I was expecting.
Some good beer on that. While Emma tests the fermentation this morning, it's Evan's lab that prevents beer cans from exploding.
This one gene makes this glucoamylase enzyme that gets excreted out of the cell. It would actually cause your cans to explode like months down the road. And nobody wants that. We check all of our beers for that gene, make sure none of the cans explode. I'm gonna grab my beer. So I run a lot of tests. We all run a lot of tests. Looking at it under the microscope, plating it out, checking for any lactobacillus growth or wild yeast growth. They have a color-changing pH indicator in there, so if they were to have any sour bacteria or something that soured it, they would change to yellow. Know if your beer is clean or not. Everything we do also gets double-checked with other types of enrichment. The same samples also get checked for a wild yeast, and we run PCR tests. We're also using PCR to check for different strains of bacteria.
You keep saying PCR. Is that like COVID?
Yeah, like COVID. Same kind of PCR test. So all you're doing is amplifying specific sequences of DNA.
So could you have used these machines too?
Yeah, they actually tried advertising it to us when we first got the machine. They were like, you should test for COVID. And we're like, yeah, but that's expensive.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
After 4 or 5 checks, everything's good to go. We send it out in kegs or cans and know that it's going to be shelf stable.
That's awesome. And this is happening all the time.
Yeah.
So not only is everything safe at the brewery, but everything is spotless, because it has to be.
Andrea and Emma, they're the keepers of the beer when it's in the fermentation tank. So if something was exposed, there's an infection or something, they're going to catch it and kind of elevate it. And then we almost do like this panel discussion of, are you smelling what I'm smelling? Like,
This is Lori Duncan. She co-owns the brewery, and so she's got a keen eye for the challenges that this homegrown business faces.
in our business, this is the bottleneck. We could run this thing 24 hours a day, 3 shifts, have beer going all the time, but if we don't have anywhere to put the beer, then that's where we get crunched for capacity. We built this brand, it was our first business. Thought one is like, gosh, I hope people come. Like, I hope they like it and that they can show up. If we would have known then what we knew now, of course we would have built this so that we could drive a forklift through the entire building. Like, you know, there are a lot of inefficiencies that we had, but those are our problems. Next time.
And until next time, there's work to do today, like making sure every bit of technology is in the right place, including some technology that was handmade.
Components that we've built here, like our little conveyor belt skirt and our dryer. These tanks are called bright tanks. This is where the beer will finish. These are conditioning tanks, and this is where they get their final carbonation to go into kegs or cans. And it will either go directly into kegs off of these bright tanks, or will run over to the canning line. It comes down the little conveyor belt. This is UV light, and we have a 6-head filler, and then it'll move to the seamer, and it goes into the labeler. We've actually gotten rid of all of the plastic tops. So we use these cardboard tops, which are highly recyclable.
But today it's still a long while until our beer gets in those cans and on that board and on this tap, because after just a few hours, our beer doesn't look like this right now. It looks more like this.
So this is like the strongest sugar to water ratio, and we're going to slowly be diluting it as we fill it all the way up.
What would it taste like if I just took a sip of what was at the bottom there?
Oh, like sweeter than Coca-Cola. It would taste like really rich, like a cold brew coffee with a ton of sugar in it, you know? When I was a home brewer and be like super cold outside, I would mix it with scotch. Just drink hot wort and scotch. Cool. It was good.
Now you might be thinking, since it's a liquid now, what happens to those 1,200 pounds of solids?
So this is the spent grain. Once the enzymes have done their work converting starches to sugars, and we've pulled out the flavors, this is a waste product that goes to a farm to be composted. Run in the liquid over to the boil kettle. We're gonna infuse some hops, some cinnamon, some allspice, cookie spice stuff. So from there, it'll go through the heat exchanger, get knocked down to like room temperature, and it'll go to the fermentation tank.
And then we can drink it like in a couple hours, right?
It'll take about 2 weeks from this moment forward. So look for it first couple of weeks of December.
And just like that, it's a waiting game. The beer sits and does its thing, while the staff at Nocterra does their thing, the science and the safety and the design and the forklift driving and the rest of the hard work before our beer hits shelves and taps and your glass. Probably looking just a little bit different than this one. Now, I'll be honest with you, by the time you're watching this video, this specific beer might already have come and gone. It's only on shelves for a handful of weeks here in December of 2022, but if you're watching this then, I hope you can make your way out to your local beer store and ask for Nocterra's Take a Hike Spiced Cookie Ale. It helps us benefit all of these amazing children's charities as we continue to raise funds at the 30th annual Andy Manathon for the Kids, which, as you may be able to tell by the numbers on the glass, we've been doing for quite some time. So happy 30 years to the Andy Manathon, and cheers to a bright new tradition with CD92.9 and Nocterra Brewing Company. So long. It's good stuff. That's good stuff.